if you see me wearing exactly the same clothes as the last video, it's because, or in the next video, who knows when I'm going to post these, it's because Frankie's still asleep, and I'm just going to take the opportunity to talk to you about some more getting your period back stuff. And I thought I would break it down into looking at some essentials that I did and that I would recommend when it comes to getting your period back. And I'm going to keep it quite basic and quite sort of like jumpy, if you like, sort of like 1 point. Realistically, I'm not, I'm going to waffle, aren't I? When it comes to getting your period back, what you're really asking your body to do is to produce hormones, but also to balance them enough and for your body to feel safe enough for your body to feel like it can reproduce. Having a period is more than just having a baby. So having a period means that you're producing estrogen, which helps with heart health, brain health, general health. I was chatting in the Rena McGregor's, we were having our team meeting, and one of the girls was reading a study that basically said that if you're not having estrogen around your body, yet you're training for health, you're not training for health. So there's so much more that it affects than just having a period or just having a baby. So even if you don't want your period, it's really important that you do balance your hormones and that you are aware of your menstrual cycle, because that's going to affect you in so many areas, including your heart and your brain and your bones as well. Anyway, when it comes to getting it back, I'm going to talk from a pretty much like a low energy availability point of view. So if you're someone that maybe follows a low carb diet, you love to train, you love to get steps in, you're a bit of a fitspo maybe, whether you do weight training or you do HIIT or you do running, it doesn't matter. It's just if you're coming from a place where perhaps your goal is to maybe stay a certain size or maybe to exercise as much as you can, perhaps you're a personal trainer and you feel like you have a certain persona that you need to attach. That was me. Perhaps you're dipping yourself into recovery, but you're still on that element of like burnout or control or those freakouts with food. That's sort of who I'm talking to when I talk about getting my period back, getting your period back. I haven't got my period actually. I haven't had my period back because I'm breastfeeding, but when I stop, hey, I could be on this journey with you again. I'm sweating as well because I had a hot chocolate and it's about 20 odd degrees here. Don't even know why I do it, but I have about 2 a day and I love them so much. Anyway, where should I start? I'm going to just start at the beginning of the day, okay? So and I'm going to compare it to like what I used to do versus what I would do in recovery. It's really, really difficult, right? Because I completely appreciate that a lot of Amenorrhea recovery and RED-S, so relative energy deficiencies in sport recovery, is asking you and your brain and your body to do the polar opposite to what maybe that Fitspo is telling you to do on Instagram, maybe that content that you've consumed for so long, maybe that belief that you've and that habit that you've formed for so long. I really, really appreciate it. I've been there. I know how hard it is. But if you are someone that trains in the morning, or even if you're someone that trains, it's really, really important that you fuel for that. I used to train fasted in the morning. I used to get up, have a coffee, probably a black coffee, and then go straight to the gym and do some HIIT. We've got a problem with that. Stress is at our peak in the morning, and we've obviously been fasting all night. It's really important that we get good carbohydrate source into our body to be able to give us the energy to be able to then sustain that training program. So Rena McGregor always taught me to have 25 grams of carbs before training first thing in the morning. That doesn't have to, so now I would have a couple of slices of fruit toast every day, and I just look forward to it so much. I just love raisins and bread together. Oh God, delightful. I don't think I'll ever get bored of it. I think like my hot chocolates, I don't mind this. I'm now sweating buckets because it's 20 degrees. They're just little things, you know. But to start with, I was really uncomfortable with that. So I started with liquid calories. So like you could consume your calories through maybe like a milky coffee and an orange juice or something like that. But the idea is that you get a good carbohydrate source in the bank. I also went for a stage of like just eating pure raisins. I needed something that was like quick carbohydrates that I couldn't like convince myself different. Whereas bread and toast, let alone 2 slices, was a little bit too much for me to comprehend at the start. So it was slow and steady. But number 1 was I made sure I was no longer training fasted. Number 2, and this is really important straight after my session, is, and this is just looking, let me just talk food wise about what I did to start with, and then I'll go back to the training. Post workout, I made sure that rather than going into the changing room, slowly getting ready, then driving to work, then getting to my desk, then having a coffee, then having a chat, and then eating breakfast, I was getting something in me straight away. So that was often a protein shake with some form of carbohydrate in. So chocolate milk is one that Renee McGregor would recommend. I wasn't having that. I wasn't quite ready for it then. And then nowadays, I literally go to the gym, come straight home. It's a 10-minute drive, and I just have my protein porridge straight away. So I get a good carbohydrate source and a good protein source. I then was eating every 2 to 3 hours, and part of that was getting rid of all of my low-fat stuff and incorporating full-fat dairy. What that enabled, the fat in the dairy enables to help your body produce your hormones. So rather than constantly opting for low cal, it was incorporating those higher fat foods as well. Eating every 2 to 3 hours, and also remembering that your post-workout meal doesn't stop at just your post-workout. This was a completely new concept for me. I thought it was pre-workout, post-workout, done. But what I was taught by Renee McGregor is no, your body doesn't just have one meal and then is suddenly recovered. It takes a while, and it can take up to 48 hours for our body and our muscles to actually recover. So everything that we put into our bodies after that is going to either help or hinder us in terms of recovery. So it's longer than that. So lunchtime, having no carbs and just chicken, well, that's a good protein source, but where's the energy coming from to be able to sustain my day? If you're working, where's the energy coming from to be able to sustain my brain? So I was eating every 2 to 3 hours and still incorporating carbohydrates at every single meal. Some of my snacks were also very just protein heavy. So whether that was just a protein bar or just a protein shake or just low fat yogurt, that was also flipped on its head of making sure I was adding a carbohydrate source and also, like I said, incorporating some full fat dairy. Like I said, eating every 2 to 3 hours. But also what was taught to me is what I would do is I would save all of my calories for the evening. So I was an avid tracker, which really did encourage me to actually reduce my tracking, and eventually I just slowly weaned myself off it. Anyway, I'm like literally regurgitating information to you, aren't I? But what I used to do, and what I see is so common, is not eating much throughout the day and saving yourself for the evening because you always feel hungry, because you always want the chocolate, because you always feel a little bit out of control when it comes to the evening. So I would save all my calories, and then I would have this big chunk of calories to eat, but I was actually just really overwhelmed by how much I could eat, that I would just still like nibble and maybe try and save calories and things like that. And then I would go over and above because I was so hungry that I couldn't stop myself. What I actually found was recommended to me was to front load. So if I was training in the morning, actually eat majority of my food straight up, like around my training, and also those early hours, and then I could like divvy off. I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do that. I was like, not a blimmin' chance. I'm gonna be overeating all the time because the evenings are just when I want to eat. I was wrong. Give yourself a couple of weeks. Let your body like try to catch up. Let your hormones like lean into your hunger. That was another thing that I never did, was just like I was always so structured, and like if I was hungry, I'd maybe have a black coffee to try to dilute it. But leaning into my hunger, leaning into bigger portions, leaning into carbohydrates, full fat dairy, leaning into front loading and eating around my training meant that actually, and it was so surprising that actually by the time the evening comes, I'm not like quick, I'm feeling out of control. I was able to have a good meal with a good carbohydrate source, and then I had a dessert. I love it. I always have done, and I was able to enjoy that and then be done. And then what that led to was the reduction in the sleep wake-ups, the reduction in getting up at night to go for a wee. It was enabling me to fall asleep a little bit better rather than going to bed on this huge bloated full tummy that's like full of, I don't know, God knows what, probably a load of sweetener, because I was still trying to choose like low calorie options. And I started to find that I was sleeping better. that pre-workout as well, like in the morning, enabled me to be able to train slightly better. This all took time. It took you don't just start this and then bam, you wake up, but you have to stick with it. You have to get to a point where you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to change. I need to change, because you get to a point that you're like, okay, I know this isn't right, and I know I'm not feeling my best, but what happens the other side? And actually, when you first start recovery, that could be really difficult, because you're like, do you know what? I'm feeling worse. I'm feeling bloated. I'm feeling lethargic. I can't stop sleeping. I feel minging. I feel like I'm gaining loads of weight. And then you're challenging all of these thoughts that's going on in your head about like, gaining weight bad. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing it. So you're trying to deal with that too. But if you can just reach and keep going and get over that hurdle, it is mental. I still cannot. Like, if 18-year-old me could just watch me where I bounce out of bed, get my milky coffee and get my fruit toast every single morning. Sometimes if I'm not training, then I might just have porridge, like I'll just have my normal breakfast. And then I go off, I have a great time training because I'm well fueled, and then I come back and I eat more carbohydrates. Like, if I could see myself, but there's no way I could do that. I couldn't do that now. There's no way I could train fasted now. I feel like once you get over that hurdle, your body starts working with you, your training starts getting better. My body started adapting to my training and adapting to the stimulus, and I felt better in myself. My body started changing in ways and building muscle that actually made me feel more confident, but I wasn't even focused on that. I was focused on the training because my body was finally working for me, so then I was finally reaching PBs. It's really weird how it all sort of like flows all together. Just rewinding and going back to the training side of things, I'm going to wrap this up soon. Going back to the training side of things in recovery, I did really reduce down my training. I would swap some of my gym sessions for walking, and then I also turned to calisthenics, that style, and like gymnastic style training rather than HIIT all the time. So I did also make sure that not only was I reducing the frequency, but I was also reducing the intensity. The idea when you're trying to get your period back and you're trying to recover from relative energy deficiency is that you need to create that balance. So when people ask me like, can I still exercise when getting your period back? Number one, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know what your bloods look like. For some people, you know, working with a medical professional, they'll say, yeah, you can, but you need to do this, this, and this. Others, they're like, no, honestly, you're at real risk of a fracture because your bones are so brittle. So for a start, it's really important that you get your blood work done. Where was I going with that? What we're trying to do is bring yourself up to energy balance to be able to have those hormones and for your body to work at optimum and for your body to be able to like push itself in training and life and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we're here. You're down here at the moment in relative energy deficiency. What we're trying to do is slowly increase, but if you're keeping your stress high and your intensity and your training high, to get this back up is really hard because you're taking energy still. I like to picture it like you've got your bank balance, you owe money, yet you keep spending every now and then. If you keep spending that energy, it's going to take slightly longer and slightly harder to restore and get yourself out of debt. So that's where I would go and just look at your approach when it comes to training and just also general stress. Perhaps it's a good time right now to look at restorative training, to slow your life down, to chill out a little bit more, to maybe lean into fun and to lean into the good food that's out there. I'm going to stop because I need to wake Frankie up. He's got an osteopath appointment. Do you want to know about that? I could tell you about that if you want one day at 11:30. He's due a feed too, and we should probably feed before we go to the osteopath, shouldn't we? Do you know one of the hardest things about motherhood is this timing thing? Do I get him in the car? Like, how do I get him in the car without kicking off because he's been fed? Because is he due asleep? It's a roller coaster. Bye.